I'm going to walk you through several steps of how to create this brand manual, and I'm going to use a bunch of heavy duty power user tips to use the power of the computer to make things um, work quicker, faster, so on. So I'm going to start off. This first segment is going to be about setting up the basic document. So, File, we're going to go to Print, we're going to go to Letter. Since it's likely this document is going to be viewed on a computer rather than, say, be printed, I'm going to create this document as a horizontal landscape document. If it was more likely to be used on a phone, that would probably not be the choice, but I'm going to guess that you're probably not going to be designing on a phone. And so I'm going to go for desktop format. So I'm going to click landscape. I'm going to change this over to inches, 11 by 8.5. I'm going to turn off facing pages. Again, because this is probably not going to be printed. I'm going to set this up as a 5-column document. I'm setting it up as a 5-column document because I think that asymmetrical layouts are more interesting. If I set this up as a 6-column document, then it would be a more symmetrical layout. Having another column would give you some more options in how to design it, but I'm going to just go with 5 columns. Okay. I'm going to leave margins at 1/2 inch. I think that's generally a good size when we're talking about designing something that's about letter size. If we were designing something smaller, I'd probably go to a smaller margin, but in this case, I'm going to stick it to there. And then I'm going to add bleed and 0.125 inches bleed is good. Finally, I'm going to change this back to picas. One more thing. I'm going to, well, and I am going to change it back to picas because you'll see that this right now currently has a 1 pica gutter. I'm actually going to make this a bigger gutter. And if I click preview, I have a document that looks sort of like this. And I'm going to click create. And I have a document. Next, I'm going to actually add flow lines to this grid. So the way we use a grid is we use these columns to fill with placeholder text. There's that. Or if we add an image, file, place, say I have a logo. Positive, CMYK, positive. If I'm going to have the logo, I want to match it to columns. If I had a photo, file, place. That would also extend to the columns. Okay. And so we use columns to decide how wide things are. And this creates a nice lineup. If I go to my preview, you see that that's a fairly nice looking layout based entirely on just having things match the column widths. Now I'm going to go back to normal. What I can also do is add what are called flow lines, which will show me where exactly I might place items horizontally. And I can add flow lines by going to Layout, Create Guides. You get this dialog box. I can tell it to remove existing ruler guides, and then it'll actually get rid of these guides and start me over, but I'm not going to turn that on. I want to fit it to the margins. If I don't tell it to fit to margins, the guides will start at the top of the page and go to the bottom of the page. And then what'll end up happening, because I have this margin, is that the grid will be small at the top and small at the bottom because it'll be cut off by this margin. As you will see, actually, we can do that. So columns, we're not going to deal with columns here because we already have our columns. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to cancel because this isn't actually the best place to do this. So if we go to our Pages palette, at the top of the Pages palette, there is something called a parent page. And I'm going to just drag another page down here to kind of prove my point. And the parent pages, if I double click on the parent page, it looks just like the other page. The reason it looks just like the other page is that the parent page, in fact, affects what this page looks like. If I go to this parent page and say I am on a block like that, and I fill it with a color, what you'll notice, and I'll move it over here. What you'll notice is that we look on this page and we see that we have that block. We look on that page, we see that we have that block. Anything created on the parent page is going to happen on all the other pages. So in fact, I want to add these flow lines on the parent page so that they will then show up on all the other pages. So I'm going to go back here, click on that, delete it. You'll notice how I delete it. It gets deleted off of all those pages as well. So I'm on the parent page. I'm going to hide the swatches, go to Layout, go to Create Guides. Again, so I'm going to make this 6 rows. And I'm going to click Preview. And you can't see them very well, and I hope you can see them in the video, but you get a very light set of guides that run horizontally. And I think 6 is a good number for this project. You could add more. like that, and that would give you a little bit more variety. Again, if I set this to page, what you'll notice is that the grid size here is one size, but because we have the margin here, this top grid is very short, the bottom grid is very short. So generally, we want to fit the guides to the margins, and then we'll have a nice even grid that way. We click OK. Okay. And if we go back here, you'll see now that we have a grid, and that would move up to fit that grid. And maybe we want to move this down to there and move this over to here. And so that would be the layout using this grid. We don't have to stop an item exactly on the grid, but that would be an option too. And then I could use this grid to create okay, like that. And then again, when I go hit Command W and hide it, you can see that this is all very neatly organized. There's also an option where maybe I want to actually add a little bit more space then between those grid elements. So I could go back, layout, create guides, remove existing ruler guides, make that, and maybe make this 1p6. Not quite as wide as the columns. Click OK. Then I'd go back here. Interesting. Oh, right. So that would mean that this logo would need to get smaller to fit in with the grid. And then this probably gets a little smaller. And that extends down a little bit more. And now we have a little bit more space in our layout. It's not quite so tight. Okay. So that sets up the initial grid. I'm also going to add one more thing that is very useful to add on the master page. Actually, no, I'll save that for the next one. Okay, so again, what we did is we set up a page. Then we went to a parent. We set up a page that had a 5-column grid with a 2 pica gutter. We then went to layout. Well, we then went to a parent. We went to layout. We went to create guides. We added 6 rows with a gutter of 1 pica 6, and we told it to fit to the margins. And the result is this. And now any page that we create in our design is going to automatically have all of those grid lines, and we can use those grid lines to design our branding guide sort of quickly and efficiently.